Welcome to Master Your Money, Budgeting, Saving, and Debt-Free Living. I'm your host, Nate Tanner. Here on the show, we use the Triggator philosophy to help you build a spending plan that fits your life, stack up savings, and knock out debt without losing your mind or momentum. And today we're talking about a word that sounds empowering, but actually causes more shame than success: balance. Specifically, the myth that your budget should be perfectly balanced, perfectly distributed, perfectly executed every paycheck every month. Now, like many myths, there is some truth sprinkled in, but much of the truth gets lost in the guilt. It is true that you need to not allow your expenses to be larger than your income. It is true that you should plan and try to stick to that plan. There are sound principles in those truths. Where the myth comes in is how we achieve balance. Here's the reality. Life isn't balanced. Some weeks are calm, others are chaos. Some months your car works, others the transmission explodes. Life happens, and when something comes up we didn't plan for, we make a mistake and overspend, or perhaps we have something that is important, but the dreaded "it's not in the budget" comes up. The traditional balance means cut. We carry around this idea that if we had more discipline, we could somehow master the elusive perfect budget. Then what happens? You spend a little extra on a weekend dinner and feel guilty. You splurge on a birthday gift and feel like a failure. You didn't plan for that school fundraiser or that impulse Target run, and suddenly you're bad with money. But budgeting guilt doesn't fix anything. It just makes you want to quit. All of these out of balance budget errors are fixable. We don't ignore the mistake, but we also don't guilt ourselves out of joy. Instead, we create peaceful balance. So in today's episode, we're busting the balance myth and replacing with something more powerful. Grace plus clarity equals purpose. We're going to break down why budgeting guilt shows up and how to kick it out. Share real-life examples of imperfect spending that can still align with your goals, and teach you the Triggator way to plan for both joy and responsibility on the same paycheck. So if you've ever looked at your spending plan and said, "I blew it, I'll start over next month," this episode is for you. Let's move from guilt to growth, because real budgeting is messy, and that's okay. Let's get into it. Let's talk about the guilt trap and why balance is a little bit of a lie. Let's talk about something that has been misused and misunderstood for far too long in personal finance: balance. Traditionally, a balanced budget has meant something restrictive, joyless, and impossible to maintain. It's budgeting by guilt, budgeting as punishment, budgeting without grace. To balance your budget, you were told to cut harder, try harder, feel worse, and aim for some mythical perfection. But here's the truth. Balance has been weaponized. It's become a way to shame people into extreme behavior, to make them feel like every imperfect choice is a failure. Like if you didn't perfectly nail every line item, you blew it. And over time, that consistent correction becomes toxic. Pointing out only the bad in your budget is like the spouse who constantly tells their partner, "You're loading the dishwasher wrong." Eventually, that partner stops doing the dishes. Budgeting perfectionism equals budgeting guilt. Let's get even more honest. Have you ever looked at your spending and thought, "I shouldn't have bought that. We ate out too much this month. I'm so bad with money. I blew it. I have to start over next month"? That right there is budgeting guilt. And it comes from the belief that there is a right way to spend. And if you don't follow it perfectly, you've failed. And that belief doesn't just slow you down, it can derail your entire plan. Because guilt turns small hiccups into shame spirals. It tricks you into thinking you're the problem, when really it's the expectation has broken. Why traditional balance fails in real life. Think about it. You don't feel guilty when your week is out of balance in other areas. If you eat takeout one night, you don't suddenly say, "Well, I failed at nutrition. Guess I'll start eating again in February. Or if you skip the gym one day, you don't declare yourself unfit forever. Okay, maybe for a moment, but you get over it. And yet with budgeting, one unexpected expense, one splurge, one off-plan moment, and we act like we've failed the entire month. That's not budgeting, that's punishment. And it keeps people locked in a cycle of all or nothing thinking. The balance myth is a branding problem. The word balance sounds calm, steady, and ideal, but real balance, like riding a bike, is dynamic. It's not stillness, it's micro adjustments. You're constantly shifting, recalibrating, and correcting before things tip too far in one direction. That's not failure, that's feedback. So let's stop chasing balance like it's some sort of holy grail, and instead embrace what Triggator was built for: intentional course correction. Real life budgeting equals priorities, not perfection. Here's the Triggator truth. Your budget isn't a law book. It's a values filter. It's not here to police your spending. It's here to give your money direction. So when something comes up, whether it's a spontaneous family pizza night or an unplanned gift for someone you love, you don't ask, did I mess up my balanced budget? You ask, did this support something I value and help move my goals forward? If it did, then great. Make it part of your plan. A budget isn't meant to keep you rigid. It's meant to help you adapt. It's just a plan for your money, and all plans are subject to change. And yes, we all make mistakes, but as the wise Rafiki once said, the past can hurt, but you can either run from it or learn from it. If you focus only on the guilt of imbalance, you'll run from budgeting altogether. You'll say it doesn't work, when the truth is, it wasn't designed for your reality. A real example, the dinner that blew the budget. A listener once shared with me that they spent $120 on a surprise anniversary dinner. It wasn't in their plan. It was more than they had meant to spend. And afterward, they felt guilty. I should have cooked, I blew the budget, I set us back, is what they said. But here's the full story. They were celebrating 10 years of marriage. It was the first time in months they had childcare. The restaurant had sentimental value. Now, they didn't use a credit card. They didn't raid their savings. They just reallocated some of their money that they hadn't used from another area. They didn't need guilt, they just needed a better plan. So they turned this guilt into growth. They realized this is an alligator, a recurring, predictable expense that they wanted to plan for next time. Now they got paid semi-monthly, 24 paychecks a year. So they did the math. $120 divided by 24, that's $5 per check. And they started setting aside just $5 per paycheck to plan for next year's dinner. No guilt, just intention. That's not failure, that's budgeting for real life. When life swerves, adjust, don't apologize. Here's what budgeting really looks like in a spending plan. One paycheck may be savings heavy. The next has to cover car repairs. That's fine. You underspent on groceries and use a little extra for date night. Great. You pause your debt payoff push to handle a medical bill. Smart move. Budgeting isn't about keeping every category perfectly balanced. It's about making adjustments that reflect what matters to you in the moment you're living. Let's reframe guilt from I blew it to I assigned it. Let's pick up where we left off, because once we recognize that guilt isn't helpful, we need something to replace it with. That something is ownership. The Triggator framework doesn't ask, did I fail? It asks, did I assign it? Because every dollar has a job, and you're the one doing the hiring. Then even unexpected expenses can be handled without shame. Let's shift the thinking from I blew it to I reassign it. The guilt loop versus the growth loop. Here's how most people handle budget mistakes. They overspend or make an emotional purchase. They feel guilty. They avoid checking their budget. They keep spending emotionally, they completely fall off the plan. This is the guilt loop, and it keeps you stuck. Now here is how the growth loop looks. You overspend or go off plan. You notice it, but you don't panic. You reassess your goals and priorities. You adjust your plan going forward. You feel more empowered, not less. The goal isn't perfection, it's awareness and direction. Intentional spending is the antidote for budgeting shame. We've all had those moments where we buy something and almost instantly feel regret. Sometimes it's a full, "What was I thinking?" Other times it's just a little voice whispering, "You didn't need that, that was kinda dumb." But what if that voice is actually the start of something powerful? No guilt, but data. If you listen without judgment, you can ask, why did I buy that? What was I trying to solve? Was this spending aligned with my values or my stress? What would I rather do next time? That is where real growth happens, because now you're not just reacting, you're learning. You're not feeling bad, you're getting better. Assign it before it assigns itself. One of the biggest causes of spending regret is unassigned income. When you don't give your money a job before it arrives, it will absolutely find something to do. It's like leaving your toddler unattended with a permanent marker. Something will get wrecked. So instead of wondering, can I afford this in the heat of the moment, ask this earlier. What's this paycheck's mission? You may find that there's room for both joy and responsibility if you decide in advance. A quick win, reframing a guilt expense. Let's walk through a real example. Say you spent $200 on a last-minute weekend trip with your friends. You hadn't planned for it, you felt guilty, but looking back, it was rejuvenating. It deepened your relationships. It filled your tank emotionally. Instead of labeling it a mistake, ask, would I want to do something like this once or twice a year? If the answer is yes, guess what? That's a savings goal. Divide the cost across 24 or 26 paychecks. That's less than $10 a check. Boom, guilt replaced with purpose. The Triggator way, joy and responsibility can coexist. The old way of budgeting taught us that joy was the enemy of progress. If it wasn't essential, it was selfish. If it was fun, it was irresponsible. But that's just not true. You are allowed to enjoy your money. You are allowed to spend on things that bring you peace, connection, creativity, and celebration. The key is doing it on purpose. That's why the Triggator triangle works so well. You're not just choosing between spending and saving, you're assigning every dollar to one of the three clear goals. Budget, cover your needs and recurring costs. Save, build for the future and protect against surprises. Pay off debt, free up future income and reduce stress. And if a joyful experience belongs in your plan, great. Assign it to a savings goal. If it doesn't, no shame, you just learned something new. That's not guilt, that's growth. A quick final word on control. You are not bad with money because you spend it unexpectedly. You are not a failure because your plan didn't go perfectly. You are human. You are learning. And the fact that you're listening to this right now tells me you're taking control. So give yourself permission to spend with joy, save with intention, and reroute with grace. Next, we're going to talk about how to build the kind of flexible plan into your everyday reality, so you're not just reacting to the moment, but preparing for it in advance. Let's finish strong by rewriting what balance really means. Because if you've listened so far, you've probably started to realize when most people say they want a balanced budget, what they really want is peace. They want to stop feeling guilty. They want to stop wondering if they're doing it wrong. They want to know that they can spend money, meet goals, and still enjoy life without falling off some invisible tightrope. So let's change what balance means altogether. Real balance isn't just math. It's momentum. For decades, balance in budgeting meant one thing: your actual numbers matched your planned numbers. If you spent more than planned on groceries and had to move money from dining out or gas, that meant your budget was off. But here's the truth: that's not imbalance, that's adjustment. It's called being a real human with real life, where plans change, prices shift, and sometimes your kid decides that they now hate that cereal you just bought bulk at Costco. Adjustments are not failures. They are signs your plan is alive and working. So instead of chasing mathematical perfection, let's define balance the Triggator way. The Triggator triangle: this is your balance. At Triggator, balance means alignment across your three core goals. Budget: cover your essential needs and day-to-day life. Save: build security, future funds, and alligator protection. Pay off debt: free up future income by killing obligations. That's real balance. Not whether you stuck to your $120 grocery plan without moving money from another category. When all three sides of your triangle are being fed, that's when you feel stability. That's when your money starts working with you, not against you. So let's reframe. Did I go over on groceries but still stay on track with my Triggator triangle goals? Did I spend more on date night but still made my savings transfer and credit card payment? Guess what? You're in the winning column. You can move forward. Make the adjustments, keep it balanced, and move on. Flexibility isn't a failure, it's a feature. Too many people treat budgeting like a crash diet: strict, unsustainable, and miserable. But when you embrace flexibility, you get to adjust for the unexpected without shame, shift categories with purpose, not panic, adapt to real life instead of feeling like it's always derailing you. The goal isn't rigidity, it's sustainability. Joy is a budgeting category. Yes, really it is. You shouldn't start budgeting to become a robot. You started budgeting to gain freedom, peace, and control. So let's make something very clear. Joy belongs in your plan. Not just in theory, but in actual dollars. If your plan has room for electricity, it should have room for connections, celebrations, and perhaps a coffee with your best friend. Want a simple exercise? Add a joy category to your spending plan, even if it's just $10 per paycheck. Not only does it help reduce guilt, it creates room to live a full life on purpose, not just survive the month. Let's get practical. How do you live with this new idea of balance? You do weekly check-ins, not monthly overhauls, not guilt sessions. Just a simple, regular rhythm of asking, where did my money go this week? Did I feed all three sides of my triangle? What adjustments do I need to make for next week? Weekly check-ins are essential when you're just getting started. They help you find hijackers, they highlight patterns, they help you adjust before you get too far off track. And once your triangle is stable and your plan has wind in its sails, you can shift to paycheck check-ins, a lighter lift that compares actual versus planned with confidence, not dread. Grace equals growth. At the end of the day, budgeting isn't about having the perfect plan. It's about building a system that works for you, one that grows with you, one that makes space for mistakes, joy, learning, and course corrections, one that gives you the life you want, not just the math that balances. So next time you catch yourself saying, I need to get back on track, ask yourself, am I off track? Or am I just adjusting? One means failure, the other means you're in control. And when you're living with purpose, feeding your triangle, and showing up to your plan with grace, you're not just balanced, you're unstoppable. Now, before we get to today's challenge, I want to make one thing crystal clear. This episode is not a license to overspend. It is an invitation to gain clarity. If you overspend once, take a breath, look at what happened, learn from it. But if it's happening again and again, 2, 3, 4 times, then it's not a fluke, it's a pattern. And that pattern is telling you your triangle is out of balance. That's when it's time to step in with one of the tools we've talked about. Add friction to make your spending more mindful. Add accountability to stay on track. Make a mindset shift to prioritize what matters. Because here's the bottom line. Every dollar you spend should be moving you towards your goals. Habitual overspending doesn't just drain your bank account, it robs you of momentum. So give yourself grace, yes, but also give yourself guidance. You don't need to be perfect, you just need to stay purposeful. All right, here's your challenge this week. Pick one area of spending that you felt guilty about. It could be eating out, a fun purchase, a trip, a gift, whatever made you say, ugh, I shouldn't have. Now reframe it. Ask yourself, did this support something I value? Would I want to plan for this again in the future? How can I assign this with intention going forward? Then go assign it right now. That's it. That's the whole challenge. We're not chasing perfection, we're building clarity. And now I want to hear from you. What's something you used to feel guilty about, but now you've made space for it in your plan? Or what is one spending mistake you made that turned into a powerful aha moment? Email me at podcast@Triggator.com or send me a message on social. I love hearing your wins, wipeouts, mindset shifts, and moments of clarity, because your story might just be what someone else needs to hear next. And hey, if this episode gave you a little peace, a little freedom, or a little grace, tap that subscribe button, leave a quick review, and share it with that friend who's convinced budgeting only works if you're a spreadsheet wizard who eats rice and beans 5 nights a week. And don't forget to follow @Triggator on Instagram, X, and Facebook for daily tips, memes, and motivational nudges to keep your spending plan strong and your triangle fed. Up next on the podcast, emergency fund versus emergency card. What safety really looks like. You've heard the advice you need an emergency fund, but for a lot of folks, when life throws that curveball, it's the credit card that comes out swinging. In this next episode, we'll dig into how many people are relying on plastic for real problems, why even a small emergency fund can change your mindset, what real safety feels like, and how to build it paycheck by paycheck. Also, why just putting it on the card may cost more than you think. Spoiler alert, your credit limit is not peace of mind. We'll break it all down for you and help you start building a plan that protects you before the next crisis hits. You won't want to miss it. As we leave, remember, balance isn't perfection. It's knowing when to adjust, when to rest, and when to lean in. You're not failing, you're figuring it out. Thanks for listening to Master Your Money, Budgeting, Saving, and Debt-Free Living. I'm your host, Nate Tanner. Keep assigning with purpose, keep stacking those savings, and most of all, keep living life on your terms. See you next time.